Well, Paige, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. And I know you said that you're somewhere in the world where it's already evening. So by the time we're recording this, some people are going to go, hold on, why is it dark where you're at? But that's a story for another day. Why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, Henriette. Thank you so much for having me in your podcast. And my name is Paige Ray, and I work a lot with coaches and entrepreneurs who want to grow and scale their businesses, but they also recognize that unless they deal with the unnecessary baggages they have around money, they are most likely not setting themselves up for success. And so when they come to me, I walk them through the method that I've created based on my own personal journey called the Healthy Holy Money Flow. And this is something that I personally have used because I often see that reflection of myself in my clients, when they come to me. Those fears and those emotional traumas around money, having that discomfort around just the thought of money and even just looking at your bank account, I've been there, and that was actually how I jump started my business, which, we'll get into that. But basically, I created this method based on my own personal journey because then I recognized that unless you deal with your issues around money, it's going to be hard to make money. If you're uncomfortable talking about money, how do you expect to actually make money in your business? And so that's something that I'd love for us to talk about because I know that, we're here to help entrepreneurs be successful in their endeavors. And especially, if you're just getting started, or maybe even, look, let's be fair. Sometimes I have clients who's been in the entrepreneurial journey for over 5 years and they're still struggling. They can be making six figures, but they're still living paycheck to paycheck. Like, how can that happen, right? And it's all because of this unnecessary baggage around money that we've brought with us.
I know, and I relate to so much of what you've said already. And I know so many of the listeners and people watching this video go like, yeah, yeah. But you know what? I do find a lot of people think that they don't have this baggage. And it's only when you really start scratching the surface where you go like, oh gosh, maybe this does apply to me. Maybe I do need to listen to this a little bit. So for everybody out there, trust me, today is going to be an amazing episode. Before we dive into all the good stuff, Paige, why didn't you share a little bit about your story? Because you said obviously you created your business around your experience, which is so normal. But tell us a little bit about your story. What was that story like, and how did that kind of evolve into where you are now?
Yeah, so back in 2014, I started my online business journey, and I was not actually looking to start a business. So what happened was I was working at a warehouse, and I was a newlywed. I was in my first year of marriage, with my husband, and we were having, marital issues because we kept arguing about money, basically. And when you're a newlywed, especially as a millennial, I was 21 years old. Our parents were against us getting married that young. We felt like we needed to prove ourselves, and us arguing about money almost felt like an echo of our parents saying, I told you so. And, I've always had this fear, especially observing my parents. So I came from a household where I always saw my parents arguing about money. And eventually, they broke up, and that was a fear that I've had. I knew that I didn't want to repeat that pattern of a broken family because I felt what that was like as a child. And a dream of mine is to be a mother. I've always wanted to have children. And, here I am, first year in my marriage, and I'm literally repeating history. And so when I realized that, it was also because of the disgruntledness that I felt in my work. So I was working in a warehouse, picking and packing boxes, and as someone who's creative, very much into her artistic side, it was, oh my gosh, it was killing me, showing up at work every time, just doing the same robotic thing over and over again. It was killing me. And that frustration was obviously being brought home. And I'm feeding that frustration and thinking, this is your fault. Like, I'm thinking about my husband and this is your fault. I married you. This is why I'm frustrated about my career. This is why we're broke. That's just how it is, right? So that's where my mindset was like. And I knew that this was not the life that I wanted to have. And I remember there was a pivotal point where I locked myself in the bathroom, sitting on the floor, and I was just bawling my eyes out. And eventually I heard this voice in my head that said, look, Paige, you can't stay in this washroom forever, right? You cannot sit here forever. You either have to get out there and face your husband and just do something. And I realized at that moment I had two choices. One was either I just tell him, you know what, our parents were right. This is not going to work. Let's just have a fresh start, you know, go our separate ways and have a fresh start in life. And maybe we'll do it better, you know, when we're on our own, right? Or figure things out and make it work. And obviously, you know, I've always had this dream of raising my own family and making sure that we're a cohesive unit. And I knew that I needed to find a way to make it work. And so I went out of the washroom, my husband and I had a conversation, and that night, basically, we decided that we were going to quit our jobs. And by the way, we both work in the same place. So quitting our jobs was really scary because it meant zero income. But, you know, I guess when you're young and you didn't have any kids, no one's really relying on you. You're a little bit bold about decisions like that. So we went ahead and quit our jobs. And I remember the next day, I was like, okay, what's my next step? I don't want to be looking for another job that I'm going to hate, right? Getting paid minimum wage, no way. So what I did, I went to Google, our dear friend Google, and I literally typed there, how to get out of debt. And for some reason, I guess it's fate, you know, I was led to this blog where basically this guy was talking about earning passive income online and all that stuff. And I remember back in 2014, it was not very common yet. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, is this a scam? You know, but I just jumped aboard. I invested in one of his programs and it's only $39. But I remember back then in 2014, that was such a big amount of money for me, especially because I was really broke and I had no idea what was coming up, right? But I followed his program to the T, and lo and behold, I remember I started earning $5 passive income on Amazon. Okay, so that jump-started my whole journey when it comes to, okay, let's explore this whole online business. And I often go back to that story and say it almost happened by accident, but that's basically how I ended up doing what I'm doing. And there's more to it, obviously, because now I'm doing this whole coaching through the money mindset and helping my clients recover and heal their emotions with money. But that's basically the gist of how it all started.
It's amazing. It's such a lovely story. And I resonate with so much with it, you know, because yes, I also went on Google and go, how do you start an online business? And then you're just down the rabbit hole. But you know what?
Yeah.
It is so interesting to hear your story as well. And the bravery behind it, I find, you know, just deciding that, okay, this one thing's not working for us. Let's quit our jobs and just find out what else is out there. It takes a brave person to do that and for the two of you to do it together. But I think this is the difference because you did it together. You kind of supported each other in that decision. So hats off to both of you and congratulations, you know, for taking that journey head on and just moving through it and, you know, being where you are now, because it would never have happened if you didn't make that decision that night.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about the money mindset. And I think this is a big thing for a lot of people. When we talk about money in an instance, and I've had some financial planners here on the podcast, and you know, we spoke about money mindset, but I think money mindset does come from a deeper inside feeling. Apart from that, it starts with a concept of how we got brought up with, you've got to be rich to be financially free. And then obviously, you know, with rich people, there's coming all of those other stories, the little tales got added onto it. But from your perspective, if somebody were to say, well, I need to have money in order to be free, what would you say to them?
Well, obviously, yes, you do need money. But I think what I meant by you don't need to be rich to be financially free is oftentimes, especially when you're coming from a place where, for example, where I came from, I was really in debt and had no savings. And my next aspiration was somehow Google is telling me that there's such a thing as financial freedom. And before, you know, coming from a place of being broke, I didn't even know that was possible, right? I thought that some people are just rich and they still have money problems, right? But really, the idea of financial freedom is we as a people, we just want to be emotionally detached to it in a way that we're not surviving. We're not worried about our basic survival needs, and that all of the things that we need to survive is being met. So financial freedom, especially, when you're coming from a place where you're dead broke and you're thinking about financial freedom because of how media portrayed it, especially now with social media, people showing off their mansions and flying private jets. And there's nothing wrong with that, with that lifestyle. Look, if you want that lifestyle, absolutely. I certainly would, I think that's going to be amazing, right? But because of that elevated perspective or vision of what financial freedom means, people often think that they need to attain that same amount of money just to achieve financial freedom. So I remember, and I need to share this experience and quote my mentor, the very first mentor that actually helped me recognize this mistake in my perspective. His name is Stefan James. And basically he said, okay, Paige, what's your financial goal? And I remember at that time, gotta hit six figures. I gotta hit six figures, And he was like, okay, well, why are you so dead set with hitting six figures? When we did the numbers, the money that we needed, and this was back in 2014, as I've mentioned, when I started my journey, it was just me and my husband. And obviously, because it's 2022 now, everything's inflated, right? But back in 2014, we did the numbers. How much was I paying for my rent, for my groceries, for, my bills, all that stuff? And you know what? I don't even need six figures to cover my basic living expenses. At that time, all I needed to make was $2,500 between me and my husband, right? And so when I thought about that, he said, look, you don't need to be rich, quote unquote, which in my mind at that time was six figures, to be financially free. In fact, all I needed was $2,500, and everything else over that is my financial freedom bracket, right? And so immediately coming from a place of being broke, when I think about I need to make from 0 to six figures, it feels like the bridge or the gap between that is so far overwhelming and almost defeating. Like, yeah. I don't know how to do this, right? But now all I'm thinking about is, oh my gosh, I just need $2,500 of passive income. I can do that, right? And the way that I work with this with my clients actually is how I did it. Instead of reaching for 2,500 right away, I remember thinking, okay, how much am I paying for rent? So at that time we were renting. How much am I paying for rent? I remember we were renting this very small basement suite, and it was $650 at this kind of scary location. It's not the nicest location, but you know what? It was home, whatever. But all I needed was 650. So I remember I aimed to make passive income of 650 monthly. And then I aim for the next level up. Okay, what's next? What can I add to this, right? So that's why I believe that you don't need to be rich first, quote unquote, rich first, because often we think rich is something unattainable or a very high figure that's way out there, right?
Yeah, it is such a beautiful story, and I relate to it so much because I often ask my clients, what is your goal? What is the goal that you want to achieve in the next 6 months or the 12 months? And they always come back with the same thing. I want to do a six-figure or a five-figure business. And it's like, okay, but let's break that down a little bit. What does that look like for you? What is it that you need right now? And I think it is so true, because when you really take it into perspective and you just make that gap a bit smaller, it becomes a lot more plausible. It becomes a lot more like, I can do this. I can do this. And then slowly you just add on to that and you grow. I think from a mindset point of view, it is so important to do that kind of exercise. And I think for everybody here listening now to you and, just watching this video, they would go like, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. So most of you might even want to go and do this exercise and just look at what is it that you need right now, instead of saying, I want a 5-figure or a 6-figure business. That's great goals to have. But if you don't think it's possible, you're never going to reach it. So you need to make it like bite-sized chunks almost. And that's what I love what Paige is saying, because yeah, you don't need to be financially rich to be financially free.
And so actually, I want to dive deep a little bit about that too. So when I talk about financial freedom, um, the way that I explain it to my clients is you're earning enough passive income to cover your basic living expenses, right? So what that means is, yes, in business, there's many ways you can earn income. And just to break it down to two obvious ways, the passive income and active income, right? So as you're growing your business, you're always going to have active income because you're always trading your time, right, for money. But however, you could also create stuff, and especially now, I don't really want to talk so much about it just because it's something that I've just recently started. But another great way that we're earning passive income is through crypto trading, for example. I wish I knew, I wish I have more experience to talk more about it, but just to kind of put it out there. And all you basically think about when you're aiming for financial freedom is how much basic living expenses do I need? And that's the amount of passive income that I need to make.
Mhm.
Because then every time that you're not going to retire right away, right? Especially if you're a creative, you actually don't want to retire. Like, let's just be honest. You want to keep creating, keep, just making your art, right? And so when you're creating that passive income to cover your basic living expenses, your active income, whatever you earn from that, is your padding for financial freedom. And when you actually have your basic living expenses covered, your brain space is so free from all the stress of, oh my gosh, am I going to make my bill this month or whatnot? And you're actually able to then keep working on your business because you have more brain space to be more creative, be more carefree, invest more, be more, invest more freely because now you're confident how that your survival needs are all being met. And that actually is the natural pathway to financial richness. So oftentimes, like I said, I have clients who are earning six figures and they're like, look, Paige, all my coaches are saying that I just need to hit six figures and I'm going to be financially free, but I'm not. Like, I'm still in debt. Like, my debt is six figures. Like, I remember one client said that to me, my debt is six figures. I actually need to make seven figures, right? But she recognizes that if she doesn't acknowledge those baggages that she has around money, she's just gonna carry that even when she's earning six, seven figures, right? And so we definitely don't want that. Having the mindset about how to become financially free, which is aiming for financial freedom first, will naturally lead us to financial richness. It's almost like the next. It's just natural for it to happen.
Yeah.
But financial richness doesn't necessarily equate to financial freedom right away.
Yeah. You said something earlier on which kind of triggered me a little bit as well. And this is where you said that when we talk about financial freedom, talking about money, so to speak, is being emotionally detached from it. And I think that is a very hard thing for us all to think about. And even as I'm saying it, people are going, huh? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Because we are all so attached to money and we all feel we need it, we want it, this is life support basically for us. But the emotions that are attached with money, with the concept of just having that finances in your bank account, it is so hard to detach from that emotionally. Do you have, oh gosh, I'm fishing out of way outside of the context here, but do you have a tip or two that you can share, or an example of what you can share as how we can just think about this concept of being not emotionally attached to money?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a tricky one because if you think about it, people buy things and invest in things out of emotions. Like, everything we do is basically driven by our emotions. And when I say emotionally detached, I certainly felt very attached with money, especially, for example, how much money we have in our bank accounts often affect our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-confidence, right? But ultimately, we know that as we grow and evolve as human beings, as we all want, we're all aspiring to that. Look, entrepreneurs, we all want to better ourselves. we just cannot attach ourselves to our identity as, for example, as a CEO of a business, or, however money we have in the bank. And the reason for this is two things. So I realized this because I remember when I was, like I said, I was having all these frustration in the home when I was a newlywed. And I remember thinking, eventually something just clicked in my brain, and I said, what in the world? I can't even hold my money because everything is direct deposit, right? Like it just goes directly to your bank. I didn't even have to hold a check, go to the bank and physically hold something that manifests money. Everything is just digital. And so I remember that day I realized, why does this thing that I can't even hold have so much grip in me that it literally affects my mood, my emotions, and how I think and feel about myself and the people around me, and even my life, right? And I said, you know what? I don't think that's right. That's something that I can't physically hold has so much chokehold on me.
Yeah.
So when I realized that, I said, you know what? I'm going to try and figure out a way to change this. And obviously, I just want to point this out. Even after you've recognized your baggages around money, this is me after many years. So my journey started in 2014, but I remember even now, for example, I would still have money triggers where I would revert back to my old patterns. But the difference now is I actually recognize it and I'm able to snap out of it right away, right? It's not like you're completely naive and just free about all these things about money. Basically, when you're having this emotion around money, I like to think about it as in it's like air, right? Obviously, we're here in this world. We need to operate, and everything is just run by money, right? Like literally, you can't do anything without money, pretty much. And if you think about air, it's such a basic necessity for us to live as well. But you don't hoard it where you just breathe as much air as you want and you keep it and you hold your breath because you need it, right? So when you recognize that money is actually just a cycle, kind of just like air, it comes and it goes, it comes and it goes. You're just able to kind of relieve yourself from the need to hold on to it. Mm-hmm. And also I have these two mantras that I like to go to whenever I'm feeling a little bit attached, quote unquote, to money. So for example, I'd like to say that I am blessed to bless others, right? Mm-hmm. So every time I'm paying a bill, I'm buying groceries, for example, and this is such a big deal. I remember growing up, my mom would, whenever we're paying at the till, she would look at the bill and she'd be like, ugh, that's so expensive. And I remember as a kid, I'd be like, Mom, maybe you can just, like, I'm thinking, maybe we can just put some stuff back, like I was feeling guilty and I was feeling like, oh my gosh, something's wrong because my mom's reacting this way, right? But instead, I would revert to say, thank you, because I know this money that I'm handing to this cashier is not only feeding my family, right? But is actually blessing someone. Whoever owns the businesses, the staff people, who are working there. So you're just passing on the blessing as you receive another one. It's kind of like, you have to really remind yourself that as you let go of something, you're just making room for something else.
Yeah.
Right. And I really like that notion about air. We know we need it, and we just, you're going to die. You're going to pass out if you hold on to your breath. So I like to think of money that way. It comes and it goes. It comes and it goes.
Yeah. It's a beautiful analogy. And you know what, at the same time, I think the other thing that stood out for me is you say that you're still on a journey. You're still discovering some of that baggage that is holding you back. And I think this is the big thing for so many people, because they think once they've cleared that baggage, it will be gone forever. And that's not the case. It's still something you're going to work on for the rest of your life. The difference is when you recognize the patterns that you've been having, those old habits. As an example, you mentioned something which I resonate with is before I used to look at my bank account, especially when I started my business, look at my bank account and go, there's no money coming in. I've only got this tiny little bit left and it's starting to drain. And what I didn't realize I was doing is because of the emotion that was coming with that. Basically, I was using the law of attraction against myself. And because I was looking at it with that emotion of, oh my gosh, it's going, it's going, it's going. Basically, I was saying to the universe and say, hey, well, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. So keep on going. Give me more of it flowing out of my account, but nothing flowing in. And then when I realized that pattern, I was like, okay, so next time when I look at my bank account, I'm thinking, I'm paying people, I'm paying people to help with my business. I'm doing this. This is great. And I'm signing up more clients. More money is coming in. And that kind of changed my mood, changed my emotion. And then the law of attraction just said, okay, well, you're happy of money coming in. We're going to give you money coming in. But it is a trigger. And you've got to recognize that trigger and recognize the emotions behind it. So when you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, that's one of those little things we've got to think about. When we talk about getting emotionally detached from money, it's not about not thinking about it. It's about just recognizing what you're feeling when you're looking at your bank account, when you're looking at money, when you're operating with money. What is that kind of feeling that you have? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing?
Yeah, and just recognizing that money is a pattern. It comes and it goes.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a flow. It will always
It's
flow.
a flow,
You can
exactly.
never stop it. It's like a river. You can never ever stop it.
Yeah.
It will always flow, and you've got to allow it to go. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is one of those other little niggly things that goes through us when we talk about money is the guilt of getting paid, but also the guilt of sometimes paying something, if I've got that right. So, and I'm talking here for those people who love to go and spend money and shop, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you go and shop for something and you feel guilty about buying something for yourself, that is another topic. But let's talk about that guilt, especially let's dive first into receiving money, because I think that is one entity that a lot of people don't talk about.
Yeah, so this is actually a very common concern for entrepreneurs, or at least the entrepreneurs that somehow are attracted to me. When we start talking about pricing and how they want to get paid, they say, look, I'm struggling with this because I know this is my calling, I know this is my life's purpose. And I know I want to help people, which, a lot of entrepreneurs, they start their businesses because they want to serve, they want to help other people. And so they now have this burden or this guilt that if they truly want to help other people, shouldn't they just give away their services for free or maybe even, very cheap, right? So that's often something that they struggle with. But obviously, that's not how you become a successful entrepreneur, right? The more value that you have, the more willing people will be to pay you, right? And it's really just a way for you to express the value that you can offer to someone through your pricing. But also because I work with a lot of clients and we focus on their high value skill, meaning even as you're trading your time for money, you want to focus on your high value skill so that you're actually trading it for high dollars, right? You don't want to be like me when I was working at the warehouse, trading my time for minimum wage, right? That's not the type of active income that we want. So as entrepreneurs, we recognize that we have enough value to get paid high dollars. But how do we now deal with the guilt of actually getting paid those high dollars? And so here's what I personally did to get over that feeling, because I felt that, especially when I was just getting started. I remember I was working with a coach, and here I was. My last job was working at a warehouse, paying, getting paid almost minimum wage, and after many years, so 2014, I launched my coaching business in 2018. But that time in between, I wasn't really getting paid, quote unquote, in high dollars, right? And here I was, I wanted to get started with my coaching business. And I remember my business coach told me, this is how much you need to charge people. And I'm like, are you serious? I was like, are you serious? That was really uncomfortable. And what I did, I remember I looked at all of the investments that I've made for my business, the mentors that I've hired, and I multiplied it and divided them into however many mentors and programs I've invested at that point. And I eventually reached a dollar amount of $650, right? So I said, okay, I've spent this amount, more than this amount already. I'm comfortable charging $650 for my first coaching client. And this is just me being a newbie in the coaching industry. But that's pretty scary because, like I said, my previous income was $13.95, and here I am hopping on sales calls and charging someone $650 for 2 sessions. So I remember thinking, okay, that is really scary, but I need to get over this. How can I be comfortable with the fact that I'm charging high dollars? So first, you have to take a look at the value that you're actually offering, right? Do you feel like you're ripping them off, right? I knew that I had a method. I was confident about being able to deliver through my coaching. And so I said, okay, I checked that off. But here's another step that I dive deep into. Oftentimes, when we're working with business coaches, right? And I'm not saying all business coaches are like this, but oftentimes it's very easy for us to talk about, okay, what's our strategy for growing your revenue, growing your income, right? Like we're always thinking about the strategy for growing the money that we are receiving. But what's lacking there is, what about planning as well and having a strategy for growing the amount that you're also giving back, right? Because especially as entrepreneurs, especially, I mean, not all entrepreneurs are starting their business with a desire to give, although I almost don't believe that, because I really believe that entrepreneurs are very service driven. We're here to help other people and serve other people. So with that in mind, we know that our intention for our business is to give back in the first place anyway, right? Plus, of course, all the benefits of the freedom and time, location, and whatever perks that you have being a business owner. But yes, so that being said, as you make plans for growing your revenue and your income, pair that with a plan for also growing the amount that you're giving back. So that can look very different for different people, depending on where you are in your business as well. I remember when I just started, I was literally starting from zero. So all I could think about was, okay, what do I have in abundance right now? So during that time, I had time in abundance, I would volunteer my time. And eventually when I started having financial excesses, I would start, even actually if it's not excess. So I don't like using that word actually, because it makes people think that they need to be quote unquote rich or have a certain amount before they can start giving financially. But actually, even if you're just donating $1, for example, to maybe you like animal shelters, right? Instead of just posting about it on Facebook or sharing whatever article on Facebook, why not actually donate something to that charity, to that organization, even if it's a small amount, right? For oftentimes we look at $1 and we think, well, it's not really going to make a dent. Who cares? Who cares? It's that seed that you're planting. So make that a part of your daily commitment to give back, because that's what you wanted to do in the first place, right? And you grow that as well as you grow your income. So that's definitely one way to immediately kick that guilt feeling out.
Yeah. And it's so powerful because, like you say, as business owners, it's not just always about us. It's about what we're giving back. And I think if you look at it from that context, remember, money is just a tool. That's the thing at the end of the day. Money is just a tool that will allow you to do bigger and better things. That is it. Not just for you, but for the world outside there. So for whoever you serve. And I had a coach and a mentor actually who said something, because I had the same thing where I felt so guilty putting my prices up and charging more. And then my coach said something to me and he said, remember, there will be no transformation without a transaction. And that immediately hit me. And I realized, well, I'm not going to do things for free anymore, because when there's no transaction, people are not committed to go through the transformation. There needs to be a commitment from the other party in order to invest in themselves and say, I want to see this through. I want to make this work. So that was a huge eye-opener for me. And then that guilt about me charging for my services completely just went out of the door. And I upped my prices. And I'm so happy because, you know what? I go above and beyond delivering to my clients with what they expect. So I know the value they're getting is worth more than they paid for, in a sense, but there's no guilt attached to that. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it works. But it's your concept, is how you see it. And you've got to change that perception for yourself.
And I like what you said, there's no transformation without transaction. It also reminds me of a saying that I often tell myself, every profit has a purpose,
Yeah.
right? It's going to be hard to make profit if you're uncomfortable charging, especially, by increasing your prices. Like, what is your purpose anyway? Like, you always go back to why you started this in the first place, right? And I think that oftentimes, we get so caught up with marketing strategies, growing our businesses, because it's a part of being an entrepreneur, right? That we sometimes forget why we're doing what we're doing in the
Yeah.
first place. So just remembering that really comes back to, you know what, there's a reason and why I need to fund this message, and that's going to be okay. There's no
Yeah.
guilt around that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the guilt of spending money. And I wanted to touch up on this a little bit, just to share it with people, because I've had clients who go like, you know what, I'm making money here a bit and there a bit, but then when I go and spend money, i.e., on just a new dress or on just a little small vacation or on buying an online course or on getting a coach, I feel guilty. So, what is your concept behind that kind of spending money and then feeling guilty? What do you think runs there that is just kind of dragging us down a bit?
I actually saw this a lot with my mom growing up. And I remember, I mean, now she's completely changed. I remember she would always tell me, now as an adult, she would say, don't deprive yourself. Like, she would always tell me, don't deprive yourself. And I think sometimes, even now, I'm a mother too. I'm like, do I really need this? Or should I just use this money maybe for my kids or whatever, right? Like, I often would tell that to my mom, but she would say, don't deprive yourself. And she tells me this because she's been there. And I think that can be a myriad of many things. Definitely I mean, I don't want to immediately assume that someone lacks a sense of self-worth, that they deserve it, right? Um, when someone doesn't want to spend on themselves, I think, is that what it is?
Yes.
Maybe they have, so that can be twofold. Either you feel like you don't deserve this thing, you don't really want it, or, oh, so now threefold. So there's three things. Either you don't really want it in the first place, you feel like you don't deserve it, or maybe you know that you have other priorities, right? So for example, I remember when I was starting my coaching business, I remember hiring a coach for the very first time, $10,000 I paid. And that was the most I've spent on an investment for my business up to that point. But I remember, ever since spending $10,000, moving forward now, anything less than 10,000 is almost, what? That's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, spending is literally just a muscle.
Mhm.
I mean, that's why some people, the more you spend, the more you'll spend tomorrow, because it literally is just a muscle. But yeah, you'll have to take a look at where that feeling is coming from. What are you buying? Maybe there's a different priority, right? So I like to think, for example, if I'm like, right now, we're doing a lot of investments in our household. So we're investing in a lot of real estate right now, and a lot of trading and stocks. And now I'm becoming more aware of the smaller things that I'm spending. And it's not so much that I feel guilty about spending them. For example, if I'm going to buy a dress, which I know I don't necessarily need that dress, but that dress is equivalent to something that I could probably invest somewhere else that I know I'll enjoy much more, right? So yeah, I don't really want to say that it's immediately a lack of self-worth, or that you don't deserve it, but maybe it's just pointing out that, look, we have other priorities here that we need to take a look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you said it. Actually, you've encapsulated it so beautifully. I couldn't have added anything to that. But I think it was just important to kind of know that there are both ways where the guilt is going. It's about receiving money and obviously spending
Mm-hmm.
money. And you'll be very surprised, but all of us have got both those entities. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
just getting us stuck here in the middle. It's like, but if you don't spend money, how can you let that flow that we spoke about earlier?
Mm-hmm.
How can you get that flow to be just natural? Because if you don't want to spend money, you're not open to the flow of receiving money. So it just kind of beautifully comes together if you're standing in the middle and you're just like, oh, I can't spend money, but oh my gosh, I'm not receiving money. It's got to flow. You've got to spend and you've got to receive. And that guilt is what's holding you back. So you've got to go work on that guilt. But I think at the end of the day, you know, just to conclude with everything, it's about your mindset about money. So for those of you listening, it's about just kind of understanding how do you feel about money? I think that's the number one question. How do you feel about money? What do you feel are those blocks that are holding you back? Are you one of those who just loves spending money? And what are your feelings about that? Is there any guilt to attach to that? Are you somebody who just holds on to money and you feel guilty about just holding on to money? You can't receive money. So just look at that and think about the flow that we spoke about here. I think it all comes beautifully together as just to how you feel at the end of the day. Note those kind of feelings down and then start doing some work. Now, I think in order to do that work, you know, Paige has got something beautiful here, which you mentioned today, and that is the healthy, holy money flow blueprint. I wanted to make sure I get that right.
Yes.
And you mentioned that earlier. So this is a beautiful, beautiful system in order just to get people obviously to kind of think about their money. Why don't I hand over to you? So you explain a little bit more about that so people can just see what it is that they can get through that.
Yeah, so the Healthy Holy Money Flow Blueprint is basically my 5-step method of how I was able to, you know, come from a place of being broke and being in this broke mindset and now achieving financial freedom for my family, where, you know, I often tell people that, like, I was so amazed by recognizing how blessed I am to be in this space, especially during the pandemic, where, you know, we're not worried about our basic living and we actually, like, recently just traveled because we wanted to escape Canadian winter. But that's why I'm doing this podcast, is because I want to share what I learned. You know, a lot of the times I see people suffering and I see myself in them because I was that person, you know, and it was also through the generosity of my mentors who shared their wisdom to me. And now hopefully I'm able to pass it on to other people. And maybe next time you'll be the one talking about money, you know, and changing how people think and feel about it. So the Healthy Holy Money Flow Blueprint is my 5-step process. And I just want to clarify, I put in the word holy there because oftentimes I get people who are very deeply spiritual, and somehow, you know, we feel that it's not okay to be spiritual and rich. There's this block there. That's why I inserted that word holy there, so that they recognize that, okay, it's okay to actually be talking and thinking about wealth, even as a spiritual person. And especially as we keep aspiring for that next level up in your financial freedom and your passive income, you know, that's going to change as you evolve your business and how you can walk through that in the different stages of your life and your business.
Yeah. And thank you so much for making this available. So, you know, I think it just beautifully encompasses what we've shared here with everyone today. So for those of you listening, the details for this program will be in my show notes, and there will be a discount voucher, which you can obviously use to go and apply for the program. But if you also would like to get in touch then with Paige, her Instagram and Facebook details are there available, including her website. So get in touch with her, have another chat if you need to. And I'm sure she'd love to welcome you into her group as well, so she can guide you and just kind of work through some of these kind of money blocks that we all have, because let's face it, we all have them. We all want to get rid of them so we can just be financially free. But Paige, thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute treat just hearing you talk and just sharing your story and hearing it. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll be in touch very soon again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Henriette. And I look forward to our next collaboration.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care.